Now, let's be real. Most people will just glance at the headlines and move on, never realizing the seismic shift happening right in front of them. But not you. You've just uncovered a global power play that few even know exists. Canada's move isn't just about fighter jets. It's about sovereignty, trade wars, and a shifting balance of power that could reshape the entire Western alliance. In history, it shows us that these moments don't happen in isolation. They're just the beginning. So what comes next? Will other nations follow Canada's lead? Will the U.S. retaliate? And most importantly, how will this decision shape the future of geopolitics? The truth is, only those who pay attention will see the patterns before they unfold. If you want to stay ahead of the game and understand the moves that shape history, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stick with us, because knowledge like this, it's the kind that sets you apart. Canada just did the unthinkable. It's walking away from a $13.2 billion deal for American F-35 fighter jets. Not because of cost, not because of performance, but as a direct challenge to U.S. power. This isn't just a contract, it's a declaration. And the fallout? It could rewrite North America's defense strategy and shake global alliances like never before. What's really going on behind the scenes? And what isn't being said? Stick around, because once you connect the dots, you'll see this is much bigger than just fighter jets. Canada is making a bold move, and let's be honest, this isn't just about fighter jets. Prime Minister Mark Carney is playing chess while others are stuck on checkers, refusing to be strong-armed into a $13.2 billion deal for the F-35. This decision isn't coming out of nowhere. It's a statement. Canada is telling the world, and especially the U.S., that its economic and military choices won't be dictated by external pressure. It's a classic case of standing up to a giant, and history tells us that sometimes the underdog changes the game. And here's where things get interesting. The U.S. has been tightening its grip on trade policies, pushing tariffs left and right on steel, aluminum, even dairy. But Canada isn't just taking the hits, it's responding. If Washington thought it could impose economic pressure without consequences, they might want to think again. The bigger question now is, how far will this trade war escalate? And more importantly, what happens when military deals become part of the battlefield? Stick around, because what's coming next will make you rethink everything you know about geopolitics. And hey, if you want to stay ahead of these global power shifts, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the real players in the game, they don't just watch history happen, they understand it. Trade wars aren't fought with tanks and missiles, but make no mistake, they shape the battlefield just the same. Canada and the U.S. have been locked in an economic standoff, with tariffs hitting steel, aluminum, dairy, and even forest products. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They impact industries, jobs, and national strategies. Under Trump's administration, these tensions have only escalated, turning long-standing allies into reluctant adversaries. And now, Canada's reconsideration of the F-35 deal is just another ripple in a much larger storm brewing between these two economic giants. But let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't just about Canada and the U.S. Every major trade war in history has had unintended consequences, and this one is no different. Tariffs disrupt supply chains, shift alliances, and force nations to rethink their defense strategies. The real question is, who benefits when two of the world's closest partners start acting like rivals? Canada is already looking beyond the U.S. for military alternatives, and that could set the stage for an even bigger shakeup in global defense partnerships. And that's where things start getting really interesting. Canada was all set to bring 88 F-35 fighter jets into its arsenal. But now, that deal is hanging by a thread. With trade tensions soaring, Ottawa is looking across the Atlantic for alternatives. Eurofighter Typhoon, Saab Gripen, Dassault Rafale. These aren't just different aircraft. They represent an entirely new strategic direction. Choosing a European fighter jet wouldn't just be about specs and performance. It would be a geopolitical statement, signaling a shift away from U.S. military dependence. And let's be real, that kind of move doesn't happen without consequences. But here's what most people don't realize. Switching to European jets means rethinking everything: training, logistics, maintenance. Canada has spent decades aligning its military with U.S. hardware and protocols. Walking away from that isn't just about buying new planes. It's about rewriting an entire defense playbook. The stakes? Astronomical. And if you think Washington is just going to sit back and watch Canada drift toward Europe, think again. This is the kind of high-stakes move that rewrites history. So, if you want to be among the few who truly understand what's happening behind the scenes, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because while most people are busy watching the headlines, you'll be ahead, seeing the patterns that shape the world. Pulling the plug on the F-35 deal isn't just a political statement. It's a financial earthquake. Canada's Air Force is designed around interoperability with U.S. aircraft, and introducing European jets would mean an overhaul in infrastructure, training, and logistics. That's not just expensive, it's a logistical nightmare. Mixed fleets require separate maintenance programs, supply chains, and pilot certifications, which could drive up costs far beyond what was originally budgeted. What seems like a move toward independence could end up creating long-term financial headaches. But here's the thing, this isn't just about short-term costs. Canada's decision could redefine how military procurement works in an era where alliances are shifting. Historically, defense deals have been as much about political loyalty as military capability. But what happens when a country prioritizes strategic autonomy over tradition? If Canada is willing to take the financial hit, it means something bigger is at play, something that goes beyond simple budget concerns. And that's where geopolitics comes in. Canada isn't just rethinking its fleet, it's rethinking its alliances. If this deal collapses, the message will be clear. Ottawa is looking beyond Washington for its future military partnerships. In Europe, they're paying attention. Countries like Germany and France have been pushing for more defense cooperation within NATO without over-reliance on the U.S. If Canada joins that movement, it could accelerate a power shift that's been brewing for years. And let's not forget the historical parallels. The world has seen alliances form and dissolve overnight when economic and military interests collide. The U.S. has long been the dominant player in Western defense policy, but cracks in that foundation are starting to show. If Canada truly commits to European partnerships, this could be the start of something much bigger, perhaps even a realignment of power within NATO itself. And the reaction from Washington? That's where things get complicated. No move of this magnitude goes unnoticed in Washington. And if history tells us anything, it's that the U.S. doesn't take these kinds of decisions lightly. Trump's administration has been aggressive in its trade policies, and a shift like this could provoke a fierce response. Economic sanctions? Higher tariffs? A freeze on defense cooperation? All of these are on the table. Losing a major buyer like Canada would also rattle the American defense industry, which relies heavily on international sales to sustain production. But politics is a game of perception, and in the eyes of the world, Canada's stance is a declaration of sovereignty. The question is, how far is Ottawa willing to go? Standing up to the U.S. is one thing, but dealing with the economic and political backlash is another. And if the pressure escalates, will Canada double down or look for a middle ground? One thing is certain, this isn't just about jets anymore. It's about the future of Canada's global standing. Canadians are watching closely, and the reactions are divided. In Ontario and Quebec, the provinces hit hardest by U.S. tariffs. Many see this as a long-overdue act of defiance. They're tired of being on the receiving end of economic pressure and are rallying behind the government's decision. National pride plays a role here, too. There's a growing sentiment that Canada shouldn't have to play by Washington's rules when its own industries are suffering. But not everyone is convinced. Some fear that this could trigger economic retaliation that hits harder than expected. Trade with the U.S. is the backbone of Canada's economy, and an escalation could have consequences beyond military deals. The balancing act between national sovereignty and economic stability has never been more delicate. And with public sentiment shifting, the government has to decide whether to stay the course or find a way to de-escalate before things spiral out of control. But let's step back for a moment, because this isn't just about fighter jets. Canada has been quietly working to reduce its dependence on U.S. military and economic policies for years. Cybersecurity, artificial intelligence-based defense initiatives, and technological autonomy are becoming central to its long-term strategy. The F-35 deal is just one piece of a much larger puzzle, one that involves redefining sovereignty in an age where traditional power dynamics are being rewritten. And here's what most people don't realize. Technology is the new battlefield. Military dominance is no longer just about jets and tanks. It's about who controls the data, the networks, the cyber infrastructure. If Canada is serious about breaking away from U.S. influence, The real game changer won't be which fighter jet it chooses. It'll be how it positions itself in the technological arms race. In Europe, they might just be the partners Canada needs to make that happen. Behind closed doors, deals are being discussed, and European defense firms are paying attention. If Canada officially walks away from the F-35, European manufacturers won't just offer jets. They'll offer full-scale defense partnerships, including technology transfers and industrial cooperation. This isn't just about buying planes. It's about building long-term military relationships that could reshape Canada's entire defense ecosystem. And let's be honest, this is exactly the kind of opportunity Europe has been waiting for. With tensions between the U.S. and its allies growing, countries like France, Germany, and Sweden are eager to position themselves as reliable defense partners. If Canada signs on, it won't just be about a few dozen aircraft. It could be the beginning of a defense realignment that shifts the balance of power away from Washington. The question is, will the U.S. let it happen? Behind closed doors, deals are being discussed, and European defense firms are paying attention. If Canada officially walks away from the F-35, European manufacturers won't just offer jets. They'll offer full-scale defense partnerships, including technology transfers and industrial cooperation. This isn't just about buying planes. It's about building long-term military relationships that could reshape Canada's entire defense ecosystem. And let's be honest, this is exactly the kind of opportunity Europe has been waiting for. With tensions between the U.S. and its allies growing, countries like France, Germany, and Sweden are eager to position themselves as reliable defense partners. If Canada signs on, it won't just be about a few dozen aircraft. It could be the beginning of a defense realignment that shifts the balance of power away from Washington. The question is, will the U.S. let it happen? If Canada follows through with this shift, we could be looking at one of the biggest geopolitical shakeups in recent history. The implications stretch far beyond fighter jets. This is about alliances, economic power, and military influence. The U.S. has been the cornerstone of Canada's defense strategy for decades, and breaking away from that won't come without risks. But at the same time, history favors those who adapt. And right now, Canada seems to be playing the long game. But here's the thing. Major moves like this don't just change one country's future. They send shockwaves across the entire geopolitical landscape. Will other nations follow suit? Will this trigger a stronger U.S. response? And most importantly, what does this mean for the balance of power in North America and beyond? If you want to be among the few who truly understand the forces shaping the world, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because while most people react to the news, you'll be ahead of it, seeing the patterns that define history before they even unfold.